it was one of those like, well, duh, of course this isn't sustainable. You know, something has to change. And so it was, I think, layer upon layer that everything that I thought I knew, that I thought I could rely upon, shifted in a way that invited me in a much deeper way to really get to know myself.
Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guest. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, you know, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of, you know, what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. You know, having the show wasn't something I started out to do, but the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things, and Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. You know, but these guys are literally taking, you know, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, you know, as they're protecting our lives, you know, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, you know, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie's Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys. All right, guys, going to be another fun episode. I'm bringing you Miss Danielle Baldino. So this will be a fun, another veteran on the show. You know I love to bring my veterans out here, let them tell their story, tell their journey. So, Miss Danielle, welcome to the show, girl. Tell us who the hell you are.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited. So I'm Danielle. I'm 32, and I live in San Diego right now. The Navy brought me here, and I decided to stay because it's San Diego. About me, so I grew up in Connecticut in a very small town, Wolcott, Connecticut. I'd be surprised if anyone's heard of it, but I, for the most part, had a pretty uneventful not very adverse childhood. It was pretty good. My adversity really didn't begin until after high school when I started college. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and from like 17 to 20, I was really I was like lost, confused. I dropped out of college. I failed out of college. I moved out of my parents' house. I moved back in. I moved out again. Like I was kind of, I was angsty.
Wait, angsty, is that a word?
It is a word.
Oh, it is now.
Yes. Oh, I skipped the part where I was the spelling bee champion and stuff.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah. A-N-G-S-T-Y, angsty. But yeah, I was angsty. Trust me. And if it's not a word, it was my life. So it was, right. We'll make it a word. I was restless. That's the good way to put it. So finally around, I want to say 21, I decided firmly to go back to school for nursing. And I did part-time. I did like 1 or 2 classes a semester. I worked full-time. I was going to community college, so I was, I made a point to pay off my semester on my own. I didn't have any, my parents hadn't saved up for a college fund. I didn't have any, grants or loans at that time, so I just paid for it as much as I could. And then I decided I actually wanted a 4-year degree. I wanted my bachelor's in nursing. So I got into a 4-year program. I was surprised. I got into the 4-year program. And I couldn't pay for it on my own anymore. So I got student loans and went to this private school. And, I didn't actually do full-time nursing school until my junior and senior year. So, I quit my job. I was full-time and I finally graduated in 2011. And at that time I decided to join the Navy Nurse Corps. So I graduated in May 2011 and they had me driving up to Boston for my commissioning to do the oath like a week later. So I joined pretty quickly. I had known actually for a couple years in advance that that's what I was going to do. I was in a nurse candidate program for the Navy. But you're not in until you graduate, but it's like an agreement that you basically agree in your junior year that when I graduate nursing school, I will join the Navy. So, I didn't know it, but I spent 2 years knowing I would join, but I didn't really know what that entailed or what I was doing, and I was like scared all the time. I even had cold feet my senior year right before graduation. I was like, what am I doing? Do I even want to join the Navy? Like, how do I get out of this? And my dad was like, we'll help you get out of it. My dad's always been on my side. And my mom's like, no, she made this commitment. Like, I had to be talked off the ledge, but I laugh at that.
See, but that's why they get all the rest of us in there at 18, because we don't know any better in the first place. So, it's like, oh, you graduated high school, you have no clue what the hell to do with your life. Let's go to the military. All right, yay, we're in.
Right, and that probably would have been a great time to grab me because I was in that zone when I was like 17, 18, But, so 22, and by the time I graduated and I was having this cold feet, I was 24 and I was engaged. So I was like, what am I doing? Or I'm sorry, no, I wasn't engaged yet. I was in a relationship that I thought would turn into an engagement. So I was like, I don't want to leave this guy. What do I do? We're not engaged. Is he going to break up with me? The very important things in life. Like, is this person going to break up with me? This boyfriend of 5 months. So, I graduated May. Commissioned in Boston, like a week later, and then there was a government furlough happening at the time, so I could not go. Normally you'd go to officer development school in Newport immediately after, your commissioning, but, there was a furlough, so I actually got the whole summer off, and I didn't have to go until late August, early September. It's only, I think it's only a 6-week program, in Newport for officer development school, so I did that, and that was not a struggle for me.
Is that where they teach you how to drink out of little tiny teacups and, proper fork placement?
Someone actually described it as just fork and knife. Like they're hand feeding you. Here's how to salute and like,
right.
It's such a mind fuck too, because they put all these people, like boot camp, I know it, I haven't done it, but I understand the challenge of it because people always laugh at ODS. I'm like, you know what, you sit in a room with a bunch of nurses, lawyers, surgeons, all these entitled people, and then try to boss them around and break them down. They're the worst. It's like a bunch of narcissists, 40 of us, and it's not male, female. It's all of us intermingled in one big long hallway, and it was just like...
So it's like Starship Troopers.
Yeah, I don't know the reference because I'm not a nurse, but, yeah, maybe. But it was very, and then they assigned one person as the divo. No one even knows what a divo is at that time. It was like being on a Big Brother. It was like they were constructing these weird events for us to like break us down. It was almost like a social experiment. Anyways, that wasn't too bad for me. I'm pretty good at dealing with stuff like that. Where where my struggle really began was after ODS. I was stationed in Camp Lejeune. First surprise.
Shithole of the entire world is Camp
Oh,
Lejeune. That base sucks.
You know, it really, and you think Camp Lejeune sucks. The Naval Hospital on Camp Lejeune, great care. They give great care. It's a wonderful hospital.
Oh no, I got scars. I got an appendectomy scar that is just disgusting from Navy doctors at that damn hospital. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good hospital, but it was like, Lejeune is already kind of the shithole, and then this is like this tiny command of like, it's like the cesspool of that. You know what I mean? Because the only Navy, as far as I know, the only like Navy institution on that base. So it's like, you know, it's a very small command. Everyone knows each other. But anyways, I thought I was going to San Diego because they tell you, make your dream sheet. You can go to San Diego, you can go here. And I'm like, okay. And then Camp Lejeune comes up and I'm like, what is the Camp Lejeune? I actually didn't even know how to pronounce it. I call my detailer. I'm like, what is this? Lejeune? Lejeune? Like Lejeune? I think it's Lejeune.
Still to this day, I can't spell it, so, you know, it's fine.
Oh God. Yeah. So I was like, whatever. I was actually happy, at the end to find out that I was staying on the East Coast because I was having cold feet, right? So I get to stay near my family. And then at the end of ODS, I had gotten engaged to that person that we weren't even together a year and we got engaged. So I was like, okay, you know, like we get to stay kind of close to each other. I accepted it. But his job was not able to move him down for it ended up being like a year. So I, you know, was in North Carolina alone, and now this was more than ODS because Newport was very close to Connecticut, not a big deal. I actually went home. We had a Liberty weekend. I went home. Like I was very close. But in North Carolina, I was isolated. I was moving everything on my own. I had no family, no friends.
And on Camp Lejeune, the ratio of guy to girls there is like 20,000 to 1. Yeah. I mean, it's disgusting. So
the ratio of Marines to not Marines, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone has a Mustang. I felt left out. Like I was like, I don't know. And someone described it once as built for, maybe it was me, but someone described it as built for an 18-year-old Marine. Like there wasn't even an abundance of bars, it seemed. It was a lot of like, if 18 and over stuff. You know, there was a lot of like, you saw a lot of car dealerships, strip clubs, pawn shops, chain restaurants. Like you wouldn't.
There was one country dancing place called like In Cahoots it was In Cahoots when I was there. It may have been.
Oh really? There's Gus's now.
Yeah.
You know, 6 years ago or 3 years ago.
And then you throw in a pawn shop, and a church in every other corner and a bunch of military personnel and like 5 civilians.
Right.
That's the entire area.
Exactly. Yeah. For people who don't know, that pretty much describes it. You could drive an hour and go to Wilmington and maybe get like a good burrito or something, but that was.
Or if you're a Marine, get in a fight with all the college kids. So.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that explains it perfectly. So I'm a woman there by myself. So I always like to tell people growing up in Connecticut, it's kind of Puritan. You can only buy alcohol in like liquor stores and there's time constrictions and all that. I was so surprised to discover in North Carolina in my first week that you could buy wine in Walmart. Yeah. I took pictures and showed my mom. I should find the pictures because I was so excited. And it was under $3 for a bottle. And it was Moscato, which I'd never had because that's not as popular up north. And it was very sweet. So I found this thing that was cheap. It was sweet. It was easy to drink. It was accessible. And I drank in college, but I never was questioned like, am I using this for, you know, something other than what it's intended, like for fun? So this is where I really started, like, I would have a drink every night after work. At this point I was working as a postpartum nurse, so not labor and delivery, but after the mom has the baby, I would take care of them for 2-3 days till they were ready to go home. So, in this new job, you know, I'm a new nurse, I'm alone, I'm in the shithole of, you know, the world, like we said. Wine is right there, it's calling to me, it's my friend. So I started to drink I started to drink more, and I kind of defined it as like self-care, like this is me time when I would get home from work. You know, I'd have like a cigarette and a glass of wine, which felt so sophisticated, and it wasn't really something I'd ever done before, but no one was there to watch, to see me and be like, what are you doing? You know, my family wasn't there.
And being around the military, nobody's going to discourage it either. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I tell everybody, you know, my experience in being in the Marine Corps, they taught me how to drink and how to fight. I mean, you know, that was the things that they really instilled in me. And, you know, drinking's encouraged. It's like an extracurricular activity as part of being in the military.
Right. And not doing those things makes you an outlier.
Outcast. Yeah.
You know, so speaking of the encouragement, we had in my first 6 months there, we had a dining in. We had a dining in, and it was like, oh yeah, you're the ensign. You know, you guys are supposed to get like drunk and crazy, and you have dining ins in the Marine Corps.
I don't even know what the hell a dining in is.
Oh, I'm sorry. A dining in is like, so if you're dining out in a dining, maybe it's an officer. It's like one of these hotty-toddy parties where everyone puts on their little mini medals and their fancy uniforms. A dining, it's basically a big dinner party with lots of drinking. A dining in is it's just the officers. You don't bring your spouses or anything. It's no civilians, and they get pretty crazy. And then a dining out is you're allowed to bring your spouse, and it's supposed to be more low key. You don't get asked.
Yeah, they're never going to invite a bunch of Marines to that. That's just not going to happen.
Well, someone told, at the end of this, someone actually said, well, I'll have to tell you the story first, but someone said, if this were a bunch of Marines, you'd be the most sober person here. But I was the drunkest person at this one. So, you know, it's this huge party, and everyone's like, oh, you know, they encourage you to just like drink. And I had a couple friends there now, so we went together, and it was, a dining in, you know, so it got kind of crazy, and I pretty much blacked out. I was like grinding with commanders. Like, I didn't even understand the rank structure barely at that point. I didn't even know how to read people's, you know, their ranks on their wrist. I don't know who I was dancing with, because you're in uniform. And I remember that was a Friday, and then Monday morning came, and I was like, I want to die. Like, I wanted to live under a rock. I did not want to go to work. And that was my first experience with like being in the military, realizing that especially in a small command or like on a deployment, your coworkers are your friends, are the people who watch you fuck up, are the people who will judge you Monday morning. Like, they're all the same group of people, especially in Camp Lejeune. Such a small, there's like 300 officers, Navy, medical officers on the whole base. So our wardroom was like 300 officers, which is not a lot. So everyone knew everyone. And so that's where that was my first experience with that, with hiding my face in shame as like our CO walked around, because he was there. Right. I probably danced with him too.
You're really lucky you didn't have the jarheads there, because we'd be like parading your ass around on Mondays. Dude, did you see what she did? And, you know, you'd still be not living that moment down.
Yeah. So I feel like that event kind of set the tone for the rest of, I had a 3-year tour in North Carolina, and I feel like maybe 75% of that time I wanted to hide under a rock. And it was always related to drinking, because I'd say, oh, I'm not going to do that again, but I'd go out with my friends and my friends / coworkers / you know, people in my chain of command, and be the idiot and then have to go back to work Monday. So my then fiance moved down maybe a year into my 3-year tour there, and that was supposed to change everything. And, you know, that everything was going to be good now. You're here to like save me. And, it did not get better, because he is a big drinker as well. And I think his drinking had actually escalated as well while we were apart. So now it's just like this implosion of like, we're having wine every night with dinner. We're binge drinking on the weekends. I'm blacking out. You know, I felt really out of control. So it was a tumultuous time. And of course that was affecting our marriage, you know, our brand new baby marriage. We had gotten married, at some point while I was down there. It's hard in October, but it was like I flew home to Connecticut, we got married, and I drove back to North Carolina, you know, so it was kind of mismatched. I always say our marriage had this very shaky foundation to begin with, because we were, you know, not even dating for a year, got engaged, hadn't even been together 2 years, got married, lived apart for most of it. Didn't really know each other very well. Alcohol was our big bond.
Well, you know, I get that, because for, you know, a lot of my Marine Corps experience, you know, was spent crawled inside of a bottle, just because that's what you do. And so I guarantee you that there's a lot of that time you guys don't even hardly remember a lot of the details of what happened, because of the time spent on benders and everything else. And, you know, when you're in a depressed state like that, you know, you work to drink. You know, for a lot of people is you go work sucks, being around the people, you're not happy at home, so then you grab a bottle to start escaping, right? Mm-hmm. So I get it. That's a tough way to start a marriage. That's why everybody's not supposed to get married on their first 4 years. Yeah.
I agree. It was tough trying to, and then we weren't by our family. So that was, but that was, the other thing was we always blamed it on external factors. Oh, maybe it's the drinking. We didn't like to acknowledge that one, of course, because then stop drinking. But, it's because we're away from our families and we miss them. It's because you weren't here and we're reacclimating. My sister, who lives in Connecticut now, she lived with us at the time, just briefly. And until she met a Marine and brought him back home to Connecticut with her, and they're still together now. But
oh, that's impressive. Well done.
Yeah. I know, she kept him tied down. But the caveat to that story is he's from Connecticut too, so they just went back together when he got out. But
right.
That's a cute little story. So anyway, she was living there with me, and so it was like, oh, it's because my sister's here creating this drama between us. We always blame something else. We never looked at maybe it really is just the drinking would like solve a lot of it to just cut that out. But we never examined that, unfortunately. And so right before I left there, this is like summer 2014, I decided for the first time, maybe I need to stop drinking and maybe it needs to be forever. And that was like a devastating thing to have to say out loud. And I remember crying. I was like, I told him that. And for me, not him, I said, I need to stop drinking. And I asked him, how does that make you feel? Will you be embarrassed? Can you be with someone who's not drinking? And he was like, I don't care, whatever. But part of me wanted him to be like, oh no, I can't be married to someone who's sober. And then that would be my out. I'd be like, I'll drink for us, So, I remember crying. I felt like I was like losing my best friend, alcohol. I felt like, if I give this up, who am I? What will I do? How will I cope? Like you said, how will I cope with this shitty job and this shitty command and being away from my family? What will I do? I don't even know who I am. And so, at the time, I'm like a big logic person. I have to like read the science behind something to really get it. Like I need to work off logic. So I found a book called Alan Carr's Easy Way to Control Alcohol. And he breaks it down very plain and simple, like why you don't actually want a drink or why it doesn't actually give you the effects that you think it does. And he's very redundant in the book. So it like drills it. It's almost like hypnosis and it like drills it into your brain. And that was really I ended up being sober for 30 days at that time, and that was the longest I've been sober, since I was like 19 or 20, whenever I started drinking. And so it worked for me, but very, very briefly. It didn't really stick. Like it worked, but then it kind of like faded off as I watched other people drinking around me. I felt really left out. So I found out I was PCSing to San Diego, and that was the next big fix, right? So first it was him moving in with me, and then it was, my sister moving out, and there was always something that was like, okay, now everything's going to be good. So, okay, San Diego, we were so excited. This is going to fix everything. We're going to be happy there. We won't be drinking as much because we'll be happier in San Diego. So we moved here. I PCSed in like late 2014 sometime, and to put it lightly, things did not get better. His work ended up separating us again. The closest they could get him to California was Omaha. So he was in Omaha. I'm like, you might as well go home to Connecticut. But
right.
So he was in Omaha, Monday through Friday and would come home on the weekends. And so that arrangement wasn't really working for me because I felt I was having these like flashbacks from North Carolina where I was alone all the time. And, the culture here in San Diego, it feels like alcohol is a lot more accessible and ingrained in the culture. There's your craft breweries, and you have to have mimosas at brunch, and, the sunset's gorgeous. I literally live on a place called Sunset Cliffs. Like, how are you going to enjoy that without wine? So the alcohol crept its way back in. Even before we PCS, I was like, well, we're going to be in San Diego. I know I'm going to be drinking there. So I just started, drinking again before we moved. And, it really it took off from there for both of us. And in early 2015, he did finally quit his job and decide to come back here, to San Diego, because our marriage was really failing at this point. But there was too much damage done, or we really never got our footing to begin with, and we ended up getting a divorce. In 2015, like mid 2015. And for a lot of people, a divorce would be their rock bottom, right? When it comes to drinking, like, okay, obviously the drinking was behind this, and, I let it destroy me. I let it destroy us. But for me, it was not. The divorce was my ticket to like, hell yeah, like I'm going out partying. I deserve this. I got married too early, and now I'm going to make up for it. Like I have my girls' nights and go on dates and stuff I felt like I had missed out on, coupled with the fact that I felt like this is what I deserved. because I spent all this time in turmoil. So I was in turmoil from drinking. So I celebrated my release from that turmoil by more drinking. Like now that I look at it, it was totally nonsensical, so
But when you're in that escapism mode, I mean, because that's what I think, drugs, alcohol, everything is. It's always an escape path to try and get away from something. Right. You're always trying to numb some sort of feeling of some sort all the way through that process. But when you're in that escapism route, you spend more energy trying to convince yourself that it's the right thing to do. Right. And you want to celebrate that victory of, oh, this is my grown up decision that since my marriage didn't allow me to go party and hang out. Now I get to go escape that misery of my life. Now it's time to party.
Right.
And that's why everybody starts spiraling. That's a good word. Spiraling downhill from there. So go ahead.
Right. Well, that's exactly what addiction sounds like, is you deserve this. And why, whenever I tried to stop drinking, because I did have bouts here and there, 1 or 2 weeks, the voice would creep up. Why are you doing this to yourself? Everyone else is drinking. You're not a raging alcoholic. You can have a drink. That's the addiction talking. Oh, you deserve this. You've been through this. We're celebrating, time to drink. You're sad, time to drink. You're bored, time to drink. You're tired, time to drink. You can't sleep, time to drink. Like it's always, when is it not a good time to drink?
You're hungover, so drink, so you're not.
It's the best time to drink. Yes, exactly. And then it starts creeping into just more and more. Oh, I'm home, and I was like, at one point, I was like, oh, I'm home an hour early before my husband is, and I'm sitting here bored watching TV. It's a Friday. I'm gonna drink a whole bottle of wine because I know we're gonna get drunk tonight anyways. Like that was my reason to drink.
That's what we always called pre-gaming.
Yeah. For me, it's with a bottle of Moscato. It was a nightmare. Like that's not even, it wasn't even just sitting there alone like a bored housewife. It was. Yeah. So, but I wasn't a bored housewife. It's just, I don't know. It was something else. So, we got divorced and I thought I was doing fine. I'm going on dates. I'm living my life. But when I actually got the final divorce papers in, October 2015, for some reason I was like, shit, this is real. Like my life just like shattered. And at the same time, I realized my uniforms weren't fitting that well. So I weighed myself and I had gained like 30 pounds from drinking, that's so many calories. I don't even want to do the math of how much I had to drink to gain 30 pounds. And, then you eat the shitty food and all that. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm not living this like glamorous lifestyle, healthy lifestyle that I thought, like just taking care of myself. So when you have to get all your uniforms taken out to the big, cause I had everything tailored real small when I was in ODS and I was skinny, and then I had them taken out as far as they go to their normal size and they still didn't fit. I actually had to buy new ones, and that's expensive as shit. I was like, okay, something needs to be done. Like khakis are expensive, like and we don't get a uniform allowance as officers. So I'm like, I gotta buy all new everything. Even when your camis don't fit, you have a problem because those things are things. So
they're basically like parachute pants and a raincoat over the top. I mean,
exactly. And when those don't fit anymore, and you have to like unbuckle your belt on the down low, like while you're sitting, like something's going on,
Which one of those ones don't exhale too far? You're gonna pop a button off and shoot it halfway across the room. I got it.
We've all seen those people where you're like, I didn't even know they made uniforms that big. Like, are they big? I wasn't that big, but like that's how I felt walking around. I sound.
But it's for real. You do see those people that walk around base and stuff, and you're like, how the hell are they still in the military?
Right.
There's no way. I mean, they are 3 times the weight minimums, or maximums or whatever, but.
I know. Well, I wasn't at that point, but in my head, I've always had a lot of body image issues. I feel like a lot of women do, but I definitely did. So just to have that, I still wasn't overweight by any means, but I felt like I was that. Like I felt obese. I felt like devastated. Like I can't believe, I have all these body image issues. So it really affected me. And so this is the second time now that I'm like, okay, maybe I need to stop drinking and maybe it needs to be forever. Honestly, just because I gained all that weight, I was like, okay. So
it wasn't the divorce. It wasn't the misery of life. It wasn't, you were down the gut. It was because you would put on 30 pounds. That's interesting.
Right. It wasn't because I almost ruined my career probably 3 times, because you can't call out in the military. So when I was hungover.
Yeah, that's well said. Hey, sir, I'm sorry. I'm tired. I'm hungover. I'm just not, that doesn't fly at all.
Yeah. No. So you would just have to just show up and just hope you didn't barf on your chain of command.
And pray to God you don't have some sort of, PT, physical run. Well, you guys are awesome. You don't run. So,
never. They just wheeled us around all day.
In your wheelchairs. That was your PT. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
The rank was on the side. Okay. So, I gained all this weight and I said I have to stop drinking. So I tried, I said, how do you stop drinking? Well, all I knew was, the Ellen Carr book I had read, which didn't end up working for me. And my Hail Mary was, okay, I'm going to try AA. And so I live in Ocean Beach, San Diego right now. And if for anyone who doesn't know, it's like this hippy dippy, lazy, kind of dirty bum. I'm going to get so much flack for saying that, but dirty bum town with a lot of transients. It's gorgeous here. We're on the beach. A lot of transients come here because it's easy to sleep outside, and it's gorgeous and it's a very accepting kind of vibe, and it just smells like all the time.
I got to add to it, because my wife just got back from San Diego not too long ago, and that was the biggest thing. She was surprised. She's like, there was homeless people everywhere. And she's like, they were laying in the grass outside of our hotel room. She's like, she's never experienced that abundance of homeless people, which is crazy.
Right. And people don't think of that because you think of San Diego as like this beautiful, like rich, like sunny, clean place. And it is. But because it's so nice out, it's very easy to be homeless here. And Ocean Beach in particular is a very accepting kind of laid back vibe. So we have a large transient population here, and they pretty much apparently fill these AA meetings because I felt really out of place in this one particular meeting that I chose in Ocean Beach, which I now have learned that that's not really a good first timer one to go to because of that. It's just a different population. That's all.
Right.
So I went to that meeting and I was like, oh my God, I do not belong here. And also I had this confirmation bias, right? I didn't really want to stop drinking. Right. So I was like, I'm not as bad as the people in this room. I'm not homeless yet. I still got plenty of drinking years left in me before I get to this point. I'll take the gift. I left and was like, if that's the only way out, if I was to admit I have a drinking problem and that's the only way out, fuck that. I'll just die drinking. Cause I was like, I can't go back to that meeting. At the end, a man gave me a rose and said, I always bring a rose to the meeting to give to the saddest looking person in the meeting. And I was like, I officially just won the award for the saddest looking person in a homeless practically AA meeting. What is that? I don't belong here.
Yeah, that's not like winning a big beauty pageant or something. I was expecting you to say, for the prettiest girl in the room or something. Yeah, no, that way to make sure somebody doesn't come back.
Yeah, he really looked, or maybe he didn't say the saddest. He said the person who looks like they need it the most. And I was like, thank you. And I brought it home. And I was drunk before that rose died. I remember it was I put it on my counter and I was drinking 2 days later because like I said, it almost reaffirmed oh no, I don't need to stop drinking.
Yeah, I'm not that bad. I'm not as bad off these people. Yeah.
Right. And so of course, like we said, I didn't hit any rock bottoms yet, right? My divorce and my, jeopardizing my career and all this wasn't rock bottom yet. So I just kind of catapulted into drinking. And I would say the next maybe year and a half was Groundhog Day for me, binge drinking on the weekends, drinking wine during the week, blacking out at least once a week. It just kind of it went into hyperdrive. And, that I would say, the next year and a half was like that, save for I had a deployment in there. So this was, the AA meeting was late 2015, and then I drank a lot, and then I found out I would be deploying on the Mercy. Are you familiar with the Mercy?
No, I'm not.
The USNS Mercy is a big hospital ship. It's actually a civilian run ship, but I'll probably get flack for saying that too. But, I forget what they're called, but it's the captain and everything is civilian. And then of course we have our commanding officer.
But civilian doctors and nurses on there?
There are civilian doctors and nurses.
The only reason I say that means that it was actually real doctors and nurses on there, but go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I just want to make sure if you're going to get flack, I'm going all in with you.
Yeah, right? Well, I'm actually a psychiatric nurse, so I get all the time that I'm not a real nurse anyways. Well, not a real nurse because I'm a Navy psych nurse, right. But I'm going to get flack for that too. This interview is going to piss off a lot of people.
That's all right. We're in for it. You might as well just go all in. Fine.
Release your egos. So anyways, I found out I'm going on this deployment, right? And so my drinking had really gone crazy in the last few months since that AA meeting. And so I said, this is going to fix everything. I won't be able to drink. For anyone who's I won't be able to drink. I'm going to save money. I'm going to just pocket all this money and whatever. Everything, every problem I have, I'm going to eat well. I'm going to work out 3 times a day. Also, I had all these grand plans for this deployment. Well, there's a saying in AA that when you're not drinking, your disease is doing push-ups. So I really felt like that vibe on deployment were the weeks, we didn't go months without drinking because it was the Mercy. We'd come into port every couple weeks at the most. So you're taking all these people who are used to drinking, and we have 2 weeks off from drinking, 2 weeks to maybe even just a few days, and everyone's just pining for it. We're obsessing on it. Can't wait till we get to the next Liberty port so we can drink. And then it was all out. As soon as we hit port, it was the first thing everyone wants to do is go get a drink. And I feel like I was drinking out of character for myself, and that's a lot of fucking drinking. Everyone seemed to be drinking more than they normally would, but so for me, that was
well, and that environment feeds it, right? So you're 2 weeks out, and anytime we got deployed or put anywhere, and you get put in the field, there's no alcohol around, and all you do because you're bored out of your mind or you're doing whatever is you're talking about, God, I can't wait till I get back to the barracks because we're going to get plowed. And then that just escalates. And now you've built up this whole thought process of my own personal victory is how drunk can I get, in a very short amount of times? Can we drink all the alcohol on base or all the alcohol in town, and then brag about how many beer cans or, in your case, wine bottles, can we stack up to say this is how much I freaking drank?
Right, exactly. And there's something to be said for any kind of deployment on a ship like that or any kind of small command, but especially the Mercy, I feel was you're putting all these people who are not used to being on a ship. We're all, doctors, nurses, dentists. It's people this is a brand new environment for us. We're not even really used to being on deployment, to be honest. Most of us had not deployed before, and most of us definitely had not been on a ship before. So it's for the first time, you have a lot of people, junior officers who are away from their spouses, or their significant others who are away from their families. It's kind of like me in North Carolina, that trifecta, It's the easy access to alcohol once you were in port and just the change in lifestyle. And then, of course, it's that, like I said, that phenomenon where your coworkers are your friends. Now, definitely, your coworkers are your friends that you're drinking with are who you have to face on Monday morning when you're, or the next day when Liberty's over. And it was also, so I also found that on deployment there was this weird sense of family. You are each other's family. You become each other's family because you're all you see for 6 months. Our deployment was 6 months long. And so there was this kind of sense of trust that I found was broken a few times. I would trust someone, okay, we're all junior officers, we're all gonna go out drinking, we have our one sober buddy we're supposed to, and we'd go out, and then all of a sudden I'd find myself left at a bar in this foreign country, and I'm what happened to that family aspect, So it was you had this expedited trust process, whereas normally it would take me a few months to trust someone. I was oh, you're a lieutenant, I'm a lieutenant, let's go out together. That was it. Now did we just become best friends? So it was very easy to just find that buddy and go out with them. So deployment was supposed to be my big lifesaver, but our first Liberty port, was, I think it was Guam, and that kind of thing happened where I was you're a lieutenant, I'm a lieutenant, we'll go together. I don't know you, but I trust you. And so I got left at a bar. I was probably being unruly. I was late for duty the next day. My very first duty ever on a ship. I probably didn't even know what it meant. It was the nurse of the day. So you have your officer of the day. It was the nurse of the day where you are just kind of, you run the nursing operations on the ship. I was late. And then this is where I saw that like my private life, my private life, my public life, my career life, my family, that weird family aspect, it all just kind of intersected. Like I felt like I was let down by these two people who left me in the bar, like, you know, and then I get back on the ship and the first person I see is my divo. So now I'm getting counseled for being late and still in civilian clothes and probably smelling like tequila. And then he's like, you know, go put your uniform on and get on duty. And then right when I thought that was all over and I had like, okay, I'm off the radar. No one's going to say anything about this. Our director of nursing, who's a captain, for you guys, it would be a colonel, right? An 06.
I don't keep up with the officer ranks, but probably.
So for anyone listening, because in most military branches, a captain is an 03, but for us it's an 06. So the 06 pulls me in her office and she's like very maternal, like, what's really going on? What happened last night? That I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed.
Right.
And I talk and I'm like, motherfucker, like, okay, so I'm late for duty, I'm hungover as shit. My divo has already counseled me like in a professional manner, as professional as he could be while I was in flip-flops and cut-off shorts. And then now I have this like mother figure who's disappointed in me, and I kind of want to tattle on those two guys who left me in the bar to begin with, like they're my brothers, you know. So it's like this weird, it was just a weird intersection of all these parts of, you know. So it was kind of like that first dining out experience I had in North Carolina where it was kind of happening again. And I'm like, shit, like I realized like I just keep repeating history, and this was supposed to be my big saving grace, this deployment, and we're on day, 7, and I already fucked up, and I was so depressed, and I was like, I want to go home. I was being a real kind of baby about it. But so for the rest of the deployment, I tried to keep my drinking under control, but I definitely, when we were in, on Liberty, I would more times than not end up drinking more than I intended, and it did not end up being my saving grace. I didn't lose the weight I wanted to lose, and I saved. That was about it.
And part of the problem is when you hit deployment anywhere and you get to go out and visit a foreign country or go someplace else, it's you let your hair down. It's a place you've never been before. You get a coin toss whether that area is going to like you or not. In those areas, usually the guys hate all the men that are military that come in that live in that country because we come in and steal all the damn women. But, in those deployments, but you are once again in an environment where you're like, dude, I'm just going all in and because everybody's going all in. Nobody's thinking about, hey, let's, take it easy or let's not do a whole lot. Yeah. No, it's all or nothing.
Right. So. Right. There's no time for moderation because you have a curfew. You have to be back. And except for, of course, in Guam, we didn't have a curfew because it's U.S. It's a U.S. port, right. So we stay overnight. And so that was part of my downfall too. So the curfew kind of curbed it, but it also was like, let's see how many we can get in 4 hours. Right. And it got to a point where, like we were in Malaysia at one point. The whole tour was Southeast Asia, and at one point, Malaysia, we were kind of in a rural area, and to get to a bar, at this point they had cut everyone down and said you can only have 2 drinks a day, just to control it, and we were all like, well, that's bullshit, and it makes me want to drink, but, it was probably about 6 hours round trip to get between the Liberty boat, that takes you to shore, and then the shuttle that takes you to the town. It was probably like a 6-hour round trip process just if you wanted to I was doing that just to get a drink. And I remember drinking like a bottle of warm red wine because the Asian countries you went to, red wine's not really their thing and they didn't know how to serve it really. And it was just like this dusty warm bottle of red wine. And I was like, sure, that sounds great. $40? Sure. Like $5 bottle here and 6 hours round trip for that. And like, for what, so it really, my drinking definitely it escalated as much as it could on deployment. I still felt like I had some kind of control. And then, so we returned in late 2016 and my drinking, I had no intentions of stopping drinking at that point. I was like, oh, well, I did okay, quote unquote, on deployment. So I must not have a problem. And then, early 2017, I was hungover. I remember I drank a lot the night before. I was just back to my old patterns and I had this thump in my chest, and I ended up having what turned out to be the gnarliest panic attack I've ever had in my life. Like my hands went numb. My boyfriend at the time said I went white. I was like, I'm dying. And we called the ambulance because I'm a nurse and I was convinced, psych nurse, I know, not real, but I did go to some school and I was like, I think I'm dying. And so I was like taking my own pulse. And so the ambulance came and they were like, you had a really bad panic attack. Like, everything physically looks fine. And I was like, okay, I can't live like this. Like, I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to die either of anxiety. Cause now I'm hungover. I have this panic attack for no reason. Probably from just being dehydrated, honestly, and just thinking of everything that's like, my life was kind of falling apart just from the drinking. And I finally said, like, I don't know if I quit drinking, I don't know how the story is going to end, but if I keep drinking, I certainly know how it's going to end. Like, this is going to kill me one way or another, or I'm going to kill myself. Cause I physically was just, couldn't even be in my own skin anymore, and it all kind of manifested in this panic attack. And so, it still took me a few months to come around. And then that summer, I finally I just woke up one day and was like, I had a really gnarly drinking session the day before and woke up and was like, what the fuck? Like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot open my eyes and feel like this ever again. Like, I just can't do it. And finally, like, the two women in me that were at odds with each other, like, I can't wait to drink and why do you drink, finally came to, like, shook hands and were like, okay, let's do this. Like, I don't want to drink. We both agree. Everyone agrees. I don't want to drink anymore. And so, so that was June. That was almost a year to the day that I woke up and felt like that. And I stopped drinking. I did not do it just on my own. I read a book called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, and it literally saved my life. And, it's kind of like that Alan Carr book where she breaks it down logically, but she's more my demographic. She's not like some old English man who is dead now. She's like, she was in her 30s. She's a woman from the United States. I vibed with her words, and I really enjoyed the book. And so I stopped drinking, for like a little more than a month. And then, I dipped my toe back into it a few times, but never like a full on, like, bender relapse or anything like that. I dipped my toe back in and I'd be like, I don't think, at that point I was like too smart. I knew too much. So if I was hungover or even just felt a little sloppy, I'd be like, Danielle, you know better than this. Like, I was able to say to myself, now you know better than this. And, I also decided at that time that I was done putting all of my eggs in one basket, especially a basket that didn't belong to me, like external things, like the next PCS, the next deployment, my husband moving in with me, my divorce, my sister moving out, like all these life situations that were supposed to be fixing me over the last 6 years that didn't. And then when they didn't work out, I felt devastated. I was done doing that. The only person who was going to change anything was me. And that really sucked.
Well, and I think that's the whole story right there is, the reason the first book didn't work, even though if it was great, phenomenal material, the reason all the excuses didn't work, all that is because it all comes down to you. You have to ultimately decide that you're going to make a change. And when most people attempt to get out of whatever rut they're in, they never fully convince themselves that they're going to change. They're going to say, I'm going to try this, or, right. This is going to allow me to do it. They're putting it on something on outside themselves when the answer is truly inside themselves.
Right. Right. And I had been doing that my entire life. Like at that point last summer, I was about to turn 31, and I had been doing that for 31 years, just waiting for the next man or, the next whatever. Oh, if I get into this nursing program, if I get married to this person, it was always this thing is going to be my ticket. And so I finally realized there is no fucking ticket. I have to just do it. And that sucked to realize. But yeah, so I stopped drinking for a little bit. And then like I said, I would come back to it. I would dip out. I started dating my now current boyfriend. We just celebrated a year together, actually. I started dating him during that period, which is often not recommended when you first turn sober to like go out on dates, but right. I got lucky. And it was funny because I was still so uncomfortable in my own decision to quit drinking that, I was so awkward. I was like afraid to tell him like, hey, I'm trying this not drinking thing. Like I didn't even want to say that because if I said trying, like you said, that would imply that I had an out. And so I'm so embarrassed to admit this, but I feel it's important to humanize myself sometimes. But I did not want to drink. I had no desire in being drunk or the taste of alcohol, but I was so still at like social odds with my decision that when I went on dates with him, our first few dates, I looked up what's the lowest possible alcohol liqueur. I think it was like Aperol, like some Italian liqueur, and I'd order that in a soda, cut with soda. So it was like very low alcohol, so I wouldn't get drunk, and I would sip on that, and he'd be like, oh, you're fancy. Like, what is this cocktail you're drinking? I was so embarrassed to tell him. And then I was like, well, I don't want him to think I have a drinking problem. So I started having a glass of wine here and a glass of champagne there. And a few times I drank more than I wanted. And finally, one day I woke up and was like, look, I have been trying to be sober. I want to be sober. I have to be sober. If you can't be with someone that's, in recovery or that can't drink, then I can't be with you. And that was the first time I ever risked, because I'm always I also have the fear of abandonment. So it was the first time I actually was I'm willing to risk losing this person that I really like because I need to do that for myself. And luckily he was like, no, that's great. I would love if you don't drink. He's an active person. He doesn't drink that much. And so it was wonderful. And it's been amazing since then, to have this, for the first time, a sober relationship, that connection with another person.
And good on you, because that takes courage as hell, because most people live to support, impress, be with people to make them okay, not themselves. So it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there, and knowing you like somebody, you're in a great relationship, to say, look, you're either all in or all out, but I have to do this for me. Right. So good on you. That takes some tremendous, tremendous courage in yourself. So I hope you're proud of yourself for that move.
Thank you. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I never made the connection before, but I'm thinking of my ex-husband when I sat him down and was like, what would you think if I stopped drinking? It was all about him, his comfort level. Whereas me, I'm destroying my whole life with a sledgehammer, and I didn't care about that at all. Right. I was like, how would you feel if I stopped drinking? So that's funny, because now I'm at this point where I'm like, I need to stop drinking, and if you don't like that, you need to go, even though I love you.
Yeah, absolutely. Is people don't live for themselves. Right. They're 100% focused on living for somebody else. So, I love hearing the stories where somebody's like, you know what? This life is mine. I'm going to take it by the reins, come hell or high water. This is how I'm going to move forward. So that's really, really a beautiful thing. Yeah. So tell me about your group you have out there.
Right. Recently, I just started a group in the last 2 months or so called the San Diego Recovering Women's Social Club. And it's just a space I wanted to create for, like-minded women in the San Diego, Southern California area to do, have their sober tribe, as we call it. I do a monthly mimosa-free brunch or meditation or paint nights or anything like that. And it's on the Meetup app.
Well, that's funny. That's all events that are heavily alcohol focused. You got, painting with a twist, which is wine drinking and painting, brunch, which is, always mimosas.
Right. It's kind of taking those events back and being like, we can still do those things, because for me, remember, it was, the craft breweries and the boozy brunches and the sunset with wine. Those are the things I felt like I'd be missing out on. But I want women to, everyone, but my group is particularly women, to realize that you don't have to give up those things. You can still have your 15 women deep brunch,
Well, let me ask, do you think you also created this environment because of your first AA experience?
Oh, absolutely. I went to a retreat in May, it's through a group called She Recovers, and they do these sober retreats, for women. And I found this connection and was like, and I'm like, oh my God, this is why people go to AA, because they need this connection and that like-minded spirit. And I was like, I need this when I get home. I won't survive without this. I won't, because I had dipped my toe back in the drinking and I finally stopped in December. So at this retreat, I was 5 months sober, and I'm like, you know what? I need something more. So that's why I created the Meetup. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just to have that person to be like, oh my God, you fucked up like that too? Me too. And then you can release a little bit of guilt and be like, because women spend so much time tearing each other down and being judgmental, and, I do the same. So it's nice to have this group where we're not doing that. It's almost, I compare it to when you tell your recovery story, it's here's my baby, now let me hold yours. We're very gentle with it, so yeah, it's really great.
So do you have a Facebook group for all these people to
The easiest way to find it is to go to the Instagram. It's at San Diego Recovering Women, WOMEN, women. And then from there's a link to the Meetup app, and there's no Facebook group right now.
I'm going to challenge you to put together a Facebook group, because I think there's thousands of women out there that are all in this problem, and they're all looking for a home. I think you can create a private group that gives them a safe environment to come together collectively and be able to share their story, because you got people, in North Carolina that are looking for some outlet and they can't find a place like this. I think you become a beautiful refuge for things like that. So
awesome. I'll do that. That's a great idea.
Well, awesome. So how does everybody get in touch with you? You got the meetup group, you got Instagram. Any other way people can get in touch with you?
Yep, I have my personal blog. It's My Morning Soda, just how it's spelled, just how it sounds.com. So mymorningsoda.com. And that's a cool blog, because I started it as a private journal, back in September 2017 when I was first going through this journey, and I wasn't quite ready to share my deepest, darkest secrets. And then I was. So I made it public so people could see kind of my whole process of like, I don't know, I'm really scared. I don't know, I might go back to drinking. And then I did. And, I update it like weekly now. And
good for you.
Yeah, so that's the best way to get in touch with me personally. And then, of course, the San Diego Recovering Women's Social Club.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. I got to tell you, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this journey. This is why I do this, because everybody's got a story, and yours is beautiful. Congratulations. Well done on making the courageous choice to live your life. Seriously, I mean that.
Yeah.
Here's how I like to finish up every show. And I stump some people on this, so be ready. If you were to leave my audience with a phrase, a statement, some sort of maybe mantra that they can take with them on their journey, something they can pull out of their toolkit as they're going through it, especially if they're in those dark times and they're trying to figure out how to make the right decision when they're stacked up against it, what would you leave them with? What would be that phrase or statement you'd leave my audience with?
My favorite that keeps me going one foot in front of the other is, it's actually from Annie Grace on her podcast, the This Naked Mind podcast. She said one time, the only time we stop making progress is when we stop walking. So, for people who have a relapse or whatever, as long as you pick yourself up and keep walking, you're still making progress. That's my favorite.
Love that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, Miss Danielle, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you sharing your journey and story with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This is wonderful. I could talk to you forever.
Guys, thanks so much for listening to this episode. I hope you were impressed by it as much as I was. Man, keep kicking ass in life. Please do me a favor. Comment, share, tell your friends about this. Every share just brightens my day. I appreciate it.